Order! Order! You are an incorrigible delinquent at times. Behave yourself, man!
It was the most heated exchange to date on the allegations of sleaze plaguing the Prime Minister. The Labour leader, Sir Keir Starmer, didn't hold back at Prime Minister's questions this lunchtime, accusing the government of being marred in scandal and dubbing Boris Johnson himself untrustworthy and a major sleaze. Mr Johnson categorically denied, saying he would rather see bodies piled high than take the country into a third lockdown, and continued to bat off questions over who paid for the refurbishment of his private Downing Street flat. Let's take a listen.
Either the taxpayer paid the initial invoice, or it was the Conservative Party, or it was a private donor, or it was the Prime Minister. So I'm making it easy for the Prime Minister. It's now multiple choice. There are only 4 options. It should be easier than finding the chatty rat, Mr. Speaker.
What I believe has been strained to breaking point is the credulity of the public. He has half an hour every week to put serious and sensible questions to me about the state of the pandemic, about the vaccine rollout, about what we're doing to support our NHS, about what we're doing to fight crime, about what we're doing to bounce back from this pandemic, about the economic recovery, about jobs for the people of this country. And he goes on, Mr. Speaker, about wallpaper when, as I've told him umpteen times now, I paid for it.
Mr. Speaker, don't the British people deserve a Prime Minister they can trust and a government that isn't mired in sleaze, cronyism and scandal?
He attacked me for talking to James Dyson about ventilators, where we're now sending ventilators to help the people of India. And the following day, Mr. Speaker, the Labour front bench said that any Prime Minister in my position would have done exactly the same thing. Our friends in the European Union voted to approve our Brexit deal, which he opposed. Which enables us not just to take back control of our borders, Mr. Speaker, but to deliver free, which it does, which he fervently opposed. Taking back control of our country has allowed us to deliver the fastest vaccine rollout in Europe, as he well knows, Mr. Speaker, which would not have been possible. Which would not have been possible if we'd stayed in the European Medicines Agency, which he voted for. Mr. Speaker, week after week, the people of this country can see the difference between a Labour Party that twists and turns with the wind, that thinks of nothing except playing political games, whereas this party gets on with delivering on the people's priorities.
Well, let's just remind you what these accusations are all about. It's over whether Boris Johnson received an undeclared loan to help pay for refurbishments of his Downing Street flat. The Electoral Commission has announced it will be carrying out a formal investigation into the issue. Lord Geidt, former private secretary to the Queen, has been appointed as the independent adviser on ministers' interests. The government is now facing 9 separate investigations over cronyism allegations. Live to Westminster and our political correspondent, Joe Pike. 2 strands here focused on in Prime Minister's questions. Joe, the issue of the Downing Street flat and who paid the bills, but also that comment alleged to have been made by the Prime Minister about bodies piling high. He's gone on the record now and said he didn't say it. How high are the stakes here?
They are very high, Sarah, because if somebody comes out in public on camera and contradicts him, it would imply that he has lied to Parliament. Now, of course, that may never happen. Boris Johnson, Downing Street, have strenuously denied he made any of these comments about letting the bodies pile high. But I think it's significant that Keir Starmer got the Prime Minister in a situation where he had to deny it on record in Parliament. The second thing it's worth remembering or worth noting from Prime Minister's questions today was with regards to that flat renovation, the Prime Minister yet again refusing to say who initially paid for it. And the big question is why? Is there something the Prime Minister is hiding? Is there more to come? We just don't know. But the fact that the Prime Minister isn't getting all the information out there and moving on from the story suggests this could last a wee while. We also had a riposte from Keir Starmer. For many weeks, Boris Johnson has called the Labour leader Captain Hindsight in reference to Keir Starmer's approach to COVID policy. The response today was Mr Starmer calling Mr Johnson Major Sleaze. We may hear that moniker again in the coming weeks. We had a similar tone from the SNP's Westminster leader, Ian Blackford.
So many people find the Prime Minister's remark that he would rather let their bodies pile high in their thousands than go into lockdown utterly sickening.
What I would say to the right honourable gentleman is that if he is going to relay that kind of quotation, it is up to him in a place like Parliament to produce the author. The person who claims to have heard it, because I can't find them. He says that they're willing to go on oath. Perhaps they're sitting somewhere in this building. I rather doubt it, because I didn't say those words. What I do believe is that a lockdown is a miserable, miserable thing, and I did everything I could to try to protect the British public throughout the pandemic, to protect them from lockdowns, but also to protect them from disease.
The pressure has increased on Boris Johnson, partly because today the Electoral Commission announced they're launching a formal investigation into what happened with that flat. The Electoral Commission basically police donations to politicians and political parties. This is what they said in a statement today. We have been in contact with the Conservative Party since late March, so for about a month, and have conducted an assessment of the information they have provided to us. We are now satisfied that there are reasonable grounds to suspect that an offence or offences may have occurred. We will therefore continue this work as a formal investigation to establish whether this is the case. The investigation will determine whether any transactions relating to the works at 11 Downing Street fall within the regime regulated by the Commission and whether such funding was reported as required. We also got an announcement from Downing Street today that Lord Geidt will be the Prime Minister's new advisor on ministerial standards. The last advisor quit at the end of last year over that Priti Patel bullying row. This is Lord Geidt. He used to be the Queen's private secretary. He was one of what some term the golden triangle at the top of the British state: the Queen's private secretary, the cabinet secretary, and the Prime Minister's private secretary. So he is somebody very experienced in all of these matters, very experienced in the Constitution and in government, and will be conducting a review, as will the cabinet secretary, into what happened with that flat. The big unknown, though, of course, is whether this will matter, how long it will go on for, and whether voters will really care too much about it. There isn't any significant sign that, for example, next week's local mayor or Scottish and Welsh elections will change because of what's happened. But of course, Sarah, this is not finished. This could go on for days, weeks, possibly months. And then possibly we could see an impact on Boris Johnson's popularity. Also significant, he was spotted today in the members' tea room trying to charm Conservative MPs, perhaps because he realises that if this does continue, his leadership at some stage could be on the line.
Joe, thank you.